Hello everyone, thanks for joining our instructional project. Today we'll be discussing another 5 tips and tricks to engage students in the virtual classroom and give you some guidance on how to incorporate our suggestions for engaging your students in the virtual classroom space. Now that we have all been thrust into the world of online learning, we have to figure out ways as educators to engage our students when they are online. At the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, some of the first things schools did when shifting to remote learning was to hold regular video meetings with their students. These can vary based on the ages of the students and the frequency of when a teacher interacts with their students, but most teachers realized very quickly that they can't use the same behavioral strategies, such as proximity, that they use in a physical classroom to engage their students. This can lead to a lack of student engagement and involvement in what is trying to be taught, regardless of age. Hi, my name is Krista Hartz. I'm an organizational development specialist for Arthrex Inc., a biomedical device company in Naples, Florida, and my degree is in adult education and human resource development.
Hi, my name is Jeanette Salazar, and I am currently the office manager at the Center for Advancement of Teaching at Florida International University. In addition, I am getting my master's in adult education and human resource development.
Hello everybody, this is Mariela Vasconcelos. I teach pre-algebra at Mater Academy Middle. My degree is in curriculum instruction and learning technologies.
Hi, my name is Inaris Filzami, and I am an active duty soldier for the U.S. Army, and my degree is in adult education and human resources development.
Hello, my name is LeVar Meadows. I'm a full-time student, and my major is recreation and sports management.
The 5 strategies for engaging your students in the virtual classroom we covered today are not meant to take the place of deeper learning. That kind of learning is generally better when done with a mix of asynchronous learning. That said, in order to get our students to that deeper state of learning with greater depth of knowledge levels, we need to make sure they are engaged when we have synchronous conversations and discussions. Some of these strategies take little setup, while others might take more time and energy to make them really successful. The purpose of these tools is to draw students into the lesson or activity and make them engaged and looking forward to your next virtual class meeting.
While there are a lot of video meeting solutions out there, today we're going to focus many of the tools around the Zoom platform, as it has some of the best interactive features and seems to be the most widely accepted in schools across the country. However, many of these strategies can be used with any video platform or device. Also, as you would with the physical classroom, we would strongly encourage teachers to discuss norms when it comes to interacting over video chat with their students prior to implementing any of these strategies.
Tip number 1 is engaging students with a virtual scavenger hunt. Our first tip is probably one of the most popular games to play with students, a virtual scavenger hunt. The premise is simple. You have a list of items and then ask the students to run through their house or apartment attempting to find the items and show them on the screen. A quick word of advice is to be sure you are not picking exact objects from them to find, like the oldest thing in your fridge. Rather, create a category that could involve all sorts of different objects that qualify, like an object with a number on it. This will reveal a lot of different interpretations of the clue, as well as not limiting what students can find around them. You could also use software like Let's Roam, Even-C, or Goose Chase to do a virtual scavenger hunt throughout the day or week where students can capture items they can identify with their camera.
Hi, my name is Inaris, and we will discuss tip number 2, which involves surveying your students. So here we have a visual of how raise hand is featured in Zoom. In the classroom, we use the classic raise your hand, to gather feedback from students. And it also helps avoid having chaos in the classroom, avoiding people talking on top of one another. But on Zoom, it's no different. You can click the little button, if you can see there in the arrow, in your participant features, and you can raise your hand. And the professor can pick on you to speak or to answer the question and any feedback provided. And also another tip that can be very helpful as well in Zoom, we are allowed to mute and unmute, and the professor is allowed to actually use that feature more in depth where they can unmute everyone and mute everyone. So if everyone starts the classroom on mute, when a participant raises their hands, or if you don't raise your hand but you stated you will speak, you just unmute yourself, or the professor will unmute you. That is also a helpful tip on raise your hand feature. But some, savvy teachers have also figured out that the chat room can act as an impromptu survey as long as it involves brief responses. So students can communicate, interact, and engage with each other silently without interrupting one another. So that kind of helps avoid the whole talking all at once as well. For better tracking, you can always use a tool like Nearpod, Poll Everywhere, or Pear Deck, which you see here below, the little features of their little logo, which are super great and resourceful sites that you can use. They help to gather feedback, which will be on our second screen or a browser tab that you can use separately. And another tip before we go to involve surveying students is playing a game like Would You Rather, which would work well to test out before using it in more in-depth and later lessons.
Our next tip involves utilizing tools for brainstorming sessions in the virtual classroom. Gathering feedback in polls is one way to interact with students, but you can also use a shared collaborative space like a Padlet or a Xiteboard to have students discuss and brainstorm ideas on shared spaces. You can also combine this with the breakout rooms to have each student brainstorm a topic while you navigate from board to board. A tip here is to create the walls or spaces for students to collaborate on so that you can have a live link to what they are working on. Once you have split them into groups, share your link to each group to work on.
Tip number 4 is utilizing software such as Nearpod to host interactive classroom sessions. Yes, you can share your screen and even your slides with your students via a tool like Google Slides, Keynote, or PowerPoint. But since you have them live, why not use a tool like Nearpod to actually guide them through the learning with you? Ideally, this would work best with 2 screens. But since everything these days is web-based, you could guide them through the presentation on one screen while they follow along to your voice on the other. Doing this on an iPad? Share the join code with your students and then have them switch to the Nearpod app while leaving the Zoom app open in the background so they can hear your voice while following along. Of course, one of the best parts of using a tool like Nearpod is all the extra features like virtual field trips, 3D models, Microsoft Sway, collaborative boards, and more. You can also embed a Poll Everywhere poll within My Nearpod. That way, students don't have to jump out of the app ever.
Our final tip for today has to do with embracing the pause in the virtual classroom space. Silence can be awkward in the classroom. It's even more awkward when you're looking at more than 24 learners on the screen in a virtual classroom space. That said, it's important to let students pause and reflect throughout the lesson, and our last tip for today involves embracing that pause. Using a countdown timer either on a slide, a video, or even in a tool like classroomscreen.com that helps students know when they should break from their pause or reflection can be really useful. Students need breaks from lengthy instruction throughout their day, whether they be on the screen or not. So if you're hosting a 50-minute lesson online, a great rule of thumb is to build in a 5-minute break for each 50-minute lesson to allow students to stretch their legs or get a glass of water to keep their brain active. So that wraps up this edition of 5 tips and tricks for engaging students in the Zoom classroom. There are many other tools and resources that you can use to engage your students in the classroom that we didn't cover today, such as playing bingo, hosting a game show, or implementing digital flashcards to keep their attention and engagement. Stay tuned for more tips and tricks, and thanks for listening.